imagine being asked every single day at the pharmacy, at the bank, at the border, at the hospital, to present a document that says that you don't exist. Well, not in those words precisely, but a piece of paper that places you into a category that is not yours, like a name that is not yours, a marker that erases you before you even spoke a word. And that is not a bureaucratic inconvenience, that is a daily act of state-sanctioned erasure. And IPPF is an organization that has spent more than 7 decades fighting for the right of every person to make decisions about their body, their own sexuality, their own life. And I come from Mexico. I'm a feminist from the global south. And I carry with me the voices of the people that we serve. Communities that have waited too long to simply be recognized for who they are. And today I want to talk about what it means, what it really means when the state says, I see you. And let me repeat some statistics that Thor was like bringing to us. Like it's like, because I think that they are remarkable, and they are remarkable in this question that Jon was presenting in terms of like where is Norway in this debate? More than 2 billion people on this planet lives in countries that provide some legal protection or recognition to gender identities beyond male and female. Like through an X marker, a non-binary designation, or a third gender category on official documents. Like more than 20 countries in the world already recognize this. Many of these countries in the global south. So like we have like the case of Nepal here, and I would like to talk about also like some of the experience in Latin America. So in that sense, I know that like Norway and you in Norway and us in the global south, we always think of Norway as kind of like being at the top, at the forefront of the standard on every progressive social justice issue. But I have to say, on this one, shame on you. No, like not necessarily, but like, yeah, there's a lot of to do, and there's a lot of to learn from the experiences in the global south, and this is important right now, and it is important for me as IPPF Director General coming to this role, where like this is one of the issues that it's a clear evidence that there is a lot of learning that could happen like from the north to the south. There is like, I mean, sometimes I think that we do not invest too much in this, like countries in the global north learning from experiences in the global south, and this is one of the cases. So knowing that like 2 billion people, this is not a niche conversation, that it's not a fringe movement. This is a global shift in how human beings understand the relationship between identity, dignity, and the law. Governments across every continent are beginning to recognize, some reluctantly, some very bravely, that legal identity systems built on rigid binary were never neutral. They were a choice. These binary models are a choice. And as choices, these can be unmade, or you can make other choices. And this is important to say. This shift is grounded not in ideology, but in the oldest language of human rights: dignity, equality, privacy, autonomy, and non-discrimination. In the Americas, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights had affirmed very clearly that gender identity is protected under these rights, these human rights, and the legal recognition must be based on self-determination. And this is also very important in terms of different models. The legal recognition should be based on self-determination, not on medical gatekeeping, not on surgical requirements, not on judicial approval. And let me say it again, self-determination. And that's important. That's important that the person themselves decide. That principle, although it's simple, it is radical and long overdue. And it's at the heart of the discussion today. So let me come to my region, because Latin America, I think so often spoken about in terms of challenges and inequalities and machismo. On the other hand, it has become one of the most progressive regions in the world on gender identity recognition. And that did not happen from above. I mean, that did not happen like from an agenda from the global north being imposed on the global south. It was built from below by movements, by communities, by activists who refuse to be invisible. And that's important. Another important thing is like third gender had existed in many indigenous cultures. Like in Mexico, there are like many, there is a third gender in Oaxaca that is in the south called mushes, that is like part of the community, and they had always existed. So this like fiction that this is something, again, like the global north countries are the most advanced, are imposing this agenda in the global south, is not only a lie, it's a lie that has been built by the anti-rights and the anti-choice movement to create a false narrative that this cultural background on the third sex didn't exist, but they did, and also regions like Latin America had advanced in the legal framing on that. And Argentina was the first country that moved very boldly on this issue. In 2012, Argentina passed the Gender Identity Law, a landmark law that established self-determination as the sole basis for legal gender recognition. Again, no surgery, no diagnostic, no court appearances, just the person's word about who they are. A decade later, in 2021, Argentina introduced the X marker on national identity cards and passports, becoming the first country in Latin America to do so. And I have heard from non-binary Argentines who described receiving that document as one of the most profound moments in their lives. Not because a card or an identity card really changed your reality overnight, but because it was the first time that the state had looked at them and said, you are real. You, with your own identity, you exist and you belong to this state as you are. And that really changed how you are in the world, how you present yourself in the world. Later in Colombia, in 2022, Colombia saw a constitutional court affirming that the right of non-binary people, like they affirmed the right explicitly. Therefore, like the Colombian Constitutional Court was the first court in Latin America to do so. The court held that forcing individuals to choose between male and female violated the constitutional right to dignity, to equality, and to free development of their personality. Non-binary activists who had fought for years said it simply, being forced to choose between two boxes that do not fit you, it's not a minor inconvenience, it's a form of erasure codified in the Colombian law. And that ended with that constitutional affirmation. And then there is Mexico, and Mexico is a little bit more complicated because we are a federation. So each state has its own law. So what we have seen in Mexico, it's a little bit uneven, but equally extraordinary. So there is no single national framework for non-binary recognition in Mexico yet. Hopefully it will come soon. But over the recent years, state after state have moved to the recognition. The first one was a state in the center of the country called Hidalgo, that was in 2022. And that became the first state to recognize the non-binary identities. And then the Supreme Court strengthened the protections to non-binary people. And civil society organizations have documented something very important, and I think this is very relevant. When people can obtain documents that reflect who they are, they have access to education more easily. They have access to health care more readily. They have access to employment, to financial services, to vote. So this is not charity. This is about rights, and this is about opportunities for people that could really affect their development. Um, but Mexico also teaches us something, and we have to be honest about it. And this is not something that we need to shy away, that legal recognition and lived equality are not the same thing. Across Mexico, implementation is uneven and administrative barriers persist. Discrimination do not disappear because a law changed. And so the work doesn't end there with the legislation, it begins there. And that's something that we as activists and organizations, and for me as Director General of IPPF, that's something that it is important to understand. It's like the recognition is just maybe step zero. But once we have that, there's so much work to do from there. And that's why we need to strengthen communities, and in our case, like also strengthen the partnerships with these movements. And in Latin America, in Chile, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Uruguay, we have seen reforms from court precedents to legislative reforms. The map of Latin America is being redrawn. Cuba's recognition just passed last year and emerged directly from the coordination between CNSX, IPPF member association in Cuba, and the community networks of activists in the ground. This is what it looks like when movements and institutions work together. That's how it looks. Change is possible and change is happening. So talking about IPPF gender equality policy is very explicit. Gender equality is inclusive of sexual orientation and sexual identity, covering people of all ages, regardless their gender identities. Our Come Together strategy, 2028, commit us to shaping laws, policies, and norms through feminist action, with a specific focus on people who are being excluded and marginalized. This is not an addendum to our work. This is really the center of our work. And our vision, the vision I carry with me into every room I go to, is for all people to be free to make choices about their sexuality, about their gender, and in general about their well-being in a world free of discrimination. Every person, not most people, not only the people that fits in what we recognize, really every person. And I will be honest with you, because I always try to be honest. This commitment is tested. We are operating in a world where we're seeing backlashes. I mean, it's beyond backlash. What we're seeing, it's a anti-rights movement that is very, very well organized, well funded, and it's transnational. So we're seeing the same strategies everywhere. And these forces these forces are louder like these years. I mean, this is not the same anti-rights movement that we used to have like 5 years ago. They are like, and really it's the context, like it's make them stronger. But like with the new Trump administration, they are becoming like better funded, and kind of the hate speech now is it's not only permitted, it's welcome. So they are becoming stronger and stronger, and we have seen legislation that is really hostile and directed to non-binary people in public life. And like the attacks that the non-binary people are receiving is like it's serious and it's very worrisome. And I think that like organization like us, we have a responsibility. So IPPF answer to the backlash is not to hedge, it's to hold the line and to advance. So let me be direct about what third gender recognition is and what it's not. It is not the creation of new rights. It's the extension of existing rights, rights that already belong to human beings, to the people whose identity fall outside the traditional binary. Dignity is not a new right. Equality is not a new right. Privacy, autonomy are not new rights. What is new and what is changing is the recognition that these rights apply to everyone without exception. The opponents to non-binary recognition have predicted administrative chaos, social disruption, a dismantling of established systems. What we have seen in Argentina, in Colombia, in Mexico, across the continent, and I'm sure that in Nepal, in Pakistan, in other places, is expanded inclusion and legal equality. Systems that thought they would break, they have flexed. Bureaucracies that predicted crisis had adapted. Communities that were told to wait had been waiting for too long, and now it's time. And that crisis that it's supposed to happen if you change a number in the identity or add an X to a binary system doesn't become a chaos. It becomes a new way of existing. And it is important to look at what had happened in other countries. And I can assure you that the systems are still there, the bureaucracies are still there, and the chaos hasn't come as others predicted. The countries that have led this change have not regretted it. The communities that have benefited from it are flourishing in ways they were not before. And actually, the common lesson from every contest is this: self-determination models are more accessible, less costly, and more respectful of human rights than systems that require medical or judicial gatekeeping. So this system's self-recognition is simpler, it's cheaper, it's more humane, and the case is just not complicated. So just to close, I'm honored to be speaking today at this event following, like one of our founders, Ottar, a woman who fought for sexual rights in an era when even naming sexual rights was an act of courage. She understood something that I believe must hold into this moment, that the struggle for freedom of the body, the freedom of identity, the freedom to simply be is always at the root. It's a struggle for what is a struggle for human dignity. I carry that legacy. I carry that voice of the moment across the global south. And I want to bring like the voices of the people and the movements like from that global south struggle, because I think that this is kind of what we need to bring into this moment of opportunity, but also of challenges. What I ask of this room, of colleagues, advocates, policymakers, and allies that are here, together, is this: see the full picture. Do not accept a version of sexual and reproductive rights that leaves out like the most marginalized people. Do not accept a version of feminism that draws a circle of solidarity too small to exclude trans people or not binary people. Do not accept the idea that the global south is simply the recipient of progressive ideas generated in the global north, because Latin America and countries like Nepal and Pakistan is demonstrated that we are generating these progressive ideas ourselves. So more than 2 million people now live in countries where the law is beginning to say, you exist, you are seen, you belong. That is profound, but that's not enough. So the struggle continues, and I hope Norway will be the next one. So thank you very much.